Everybody, I'm Brian Julius. I'm the Chief Content Officer for Enterprise DNA, and I'm really excited about this discussion today. It's one that we've been planning for a long time. I've got with me my good friend Haroon Ali. Haroon is the co-founder of Stellify BI, a top-tier BI consulting firm. And he, even though he's relatively young, he has had just a fascinating journey in data analytics. And he's not someone who talks about himself frequently, but I've kind of convinced him to share with us today about his journey, which I think you'll find really interesting and instructive. We've been doing more and more career content lately, and I'm getting a lot of questions from folks about breaking into the field and advancing in the field and moving from corporate to consulting. And Haroon has done all these things and is really picked up some interesting lessons and ideas along the way. And so I want to spend some time talking with him today and having him share about his experience. So thank you for joining us today, Haroon.
Oh, thank you, Brian, for that intro. Quite a heavy intro there. No, I'm a very young in kind of Power BI and the BI space, but yeah, thank you very much for the intro.
So I wanted to start. You have an interesting background. You have an advanced degree in Chemical and Petroleum Engineering, which is not your typical background for data analytics. And I wondered if you could just kind of talk about how you got from there to into a data analytics career. Kind of what motivated you after putting in that much time and effort in that field to transitioning to something different.
Sure. Yeah, like you said, I probably didn't have a conventional start to kind of IT and data analysis. So I always kind of, was, big petrol drilling, money, kind of that's the space to be in. And I kind of focused in on there for quite a while initially when I graduated, tried getting my foot in the door for some advanced, not even advanced, entry level roles. But even for entry level, it was kind of, hey, where's your 5 years of experience? And I kind of got stuck in a bit of a loop where it was like, you need the experience to get in for anything engineering wise. And then I kind of saw the boot camp slash, learn in 6 months while you got a job in terms of IT and development. So I had the opportunity to kind of jump on one of these courses, and I was like, at this point, I've got nothing to lose, right? No graduate job. And I was like, I'd rather be doing something that's got the potential of a good career. So kind of just went in with the mindset of learning anything kind of IT based. How does it work? Because I quickly realized that was the gap, is kind of you've got all of this theoretical knowledge, and I know we kind of did engineering and a science, but kind of that learning and the application to the real working world, I think that the implementation side's always missing. Like, how does it work in working with a team who's kind of remote, or working with guys who are miles older than you, or girls who are miles older than you, who've got 5-6 years of experience. I think I came from a background where it was kind of, always working in the same sets and not kind of a massively diverse team. So I think, getting a boot camp kind of, right, here's a skill that you can learn and this is how you implement it, definitely helped me at the start. Yeah, and I kind of took it from there. So learned your typical agile software delivery lifecycle, all that kind of high level stuff, before I really took a deep dive into analytics and said, this is kind of the space I want to focus in. I don't think I had this master plan to say, I'm going to be a Power BI dev and kind of set up my own consultancy. That kind of just happened on the way. And I think when I'm speaking to a lot of people now, is kind of, I very much see myself kind of in their position. It's like, no, I need to learn everything as quickly as possible. And it's like, sometimes you don't really know which bit you're going to focus in on. Just kind of get your foot in the door and have a little nosy and see what you like. There's normally roles within roles within roles that people kind of don't see from the outside. But yeah, kind of high level, that's kind of been my start really into analytics, was the boot camp. And then I moved into kind of a role straight away into kind of Excel. So everything that I learned was kind of, SQL, Excel at that point. Power BI was just very much just coming into the picture. But yeah, I was lucky enough to land a gig where I was doing daily reporting, monthly reporting, with a team that was quite well established in the NHS. So they had all of their daily rotas, and I kind of got to see the bigger picture of how it works in an organization, the databases, how we have all the monthly tasks aligned to that, the daily tasks that the kind of analysts need to do. So it was quite nice for me to kind of, again, learn the infrastructure. How does a business intelligence team work? So I kind of got that. And then I kind of saw the opportunity there, and I was like, damn, this is still a lot of manual work here. Coming in and refreshing all of these Excels, there's surely got to be a better way. And that's kind of where I started looking more into analytics and kind of self-serve, after kind of doing that stint in Excel and saying, you know what, there's definitely better ways. But I think that experience kind of gave me, actually, you can go and do all this fancy stuff, but these pipelines and this stuff actually needs to be in place, whether we're using a fancy front end or not. Which I think, some of these tools, or when people are first looking at these tools, they kind of seem to neglect, and it's, shiny object syndrome. Oh, I can see loads of filters and everything flashing. I want that. And normally they're probably not even at the level of having consistent reporting in Excel or well done reporting in Excel.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack there. So before moving back into the analytics portion, I wanted to just go back to your engineering experience and kind of, did you find that the training from engineering, because a lot of folks I talk to are coming from other fields in analytics, and was wondering kind of the extent to which the engineering you felt either did or didn't prepare you well for that move into the boot camp, and whether there were some things in the engineering training that you've since kind of carried with you in terms of problem solving or technical skills, and wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Definitely. I think what I'm seeing now is might be a bit controversial as well, is kind of, if I look back, would I have gone to university? Probably not. I think if I'd have dived in straight into kind of IT and kind of analytics, but hindsight's great, right? I'm kind of thinking 5 years on, but a lot of it is transferable, right? For me, it's kind of learning the procedures. The mathematics helps, right? Again, as you said, the problem solving, and it's just that mindset, right? The setup. Have I evaluated the problem before rushing into it? I think engineering makes you kind of do the upfront work, right? To do the calculations, do the simulations before we've kind of ever put pen to paper, if that makes sense. So we do a lot of pre-work. So that was kind of right. Don't be scared to spend time in discovery. That's a transferable skill, right? That's kind of, most of the learning happens when you're kind of researching. When it becomes second nature, you kind of plateau in at that point. So I kind of enjoy the in university, everything's kind of new at that stage. So the skills of being able to Google well come in handy. And
I definitely think Googling is a skill.
100%.
Yeah, I always say life is an open book test.
Exactly. And yeah, like that's a great point, actually. Like, not trying to memorize everything. Like you said, we've got it to hand. Teachers used to say to us, "You're never going to have a calculator in you." We do. We literally walk around with this stuff in our pockets. So yeah, just being curious, as again carried that across. But yeah, just the procedural nature of university, I think a lot of that is transferable. Setting up the right environment. Again, whenever you're starting a new project, setting up the right environment, making sure stakeholders, again, teamwork, if we've got the right people who can do the right job. You're always trying to work or find that A team kind of combination. You don't just want to be working with people who are like yourself. I think that was a key learning for me, is kind of, there's people who enjoy certain tasks, let them do them tasks. And don't try to do it all. I think early on, everyone tries doing way too much. You start trying to do web development, design, creation, as well as trying to learn the database stuff. And it's kind of, actually, that stuff will come as you're doing the projects, but pick an area and really kind of learn that first, and then boom, very much like you do your modules in university, right? You normally have 2 or 3 modules, focus on them. Once you've passed them, then move on to the next. I think stuff like LinkedIn, etc., can kind of be a bit of a drawback. It's good, there's loads of benefits to it. But I think it also gives people the platform to kind of showboat and say, I've covered off 50 examinations, and it's like, okay, and what? And I fell into that trap. I started doing loads of qualifications, thinking that was going to take me to the next level, and it's kind of like, I would have maybe been better off investing that money elsewhere. Some of these things become a bit of a tick box exercise. So I think it's just focusing in on what matters. I think, university, you pick the modules which are weighted the most, that are going to contribute most to your grade. So I think, again, that's transferable, right? Just look at the learning modules and the job market very much like university, like you're picking your modules and how the semester is going to go based on that.
In terms of kind of picking your modules, you talked earlier about, kind of the foundation you developed in Excel and SQL, and kind of looking back, is that something you would still recommend as the kind of the proper sequence for somebody?
I don't want to be too prescriptive, but this stuff doesn't change. Data lake, data warehouse, you can name what you want, but it's kind of understanding them core patterns, right? The kind of tools change, but at a high level, what we're trying to understand is, where is the data, i.e. the data source? Do we need to do anything to it on the way while we're processing it? And then how am I presenting this data? So kind of learning that pattern. And I think one of the best books I can kind of recommend, or is a must read kind of starting out in analytics, is the Data Warehouse Toolkit.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah, I totally agree.
The terminology is going to change, but them cookie cutting patterns and the 5 or 6 scenarios in terms of what's possible, that's pretty much business today, right? We've got fancier tools that can kind of do it faster, but knowing them patterns in your head will kind of make sure that you can transfer this to any tool. So, knowing what's the difference between ETL and ELT, and knowing when should I pick it. Forget about the tool. Just knowing, should I first transform the data or should I load it based on the use case? That's more important than saying, for me anyway, to say, I can script it perfectly just in Snowflake. But any other thing, I wouldn't know what to do, because all I've been doing is copying and pasting the script. Same with kind of the SQL side of it. It's a great language to have, right? SQL, definitely learn SQL. Everyone's kind of chucking stuff left, right, and center in the industry, and kind of, cloud first has become just creating Azure SQL servers. And you're going to be querying that, whether you're using Power BI, Click, whatever. SQL's not going anywhere. So I definitely recommend that. Excel, again, it's just too common to not kind of have that base knowledge in it. Finance industries and especially in manufacturing and finance, they're not going anywhere anytime soon, guys. The amount of work, like in terms of, there's programs of work to kind of bring all of this stuff into the new age. So you're going to need that base. If you want to kind of work in this space in terms of using the Power Platform to kind of modernize these archaic solutions, you have to be able to understand these archaic solutions. So kind of Excel, again, I think that's a given for any analyst. I'm not saying become an expert in VBA, but knowing your way around, just being able to quickly add filters, some calculations, just that sense checking in Excel will take you a long way. Definitely highly recommend them too.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. Wanted to go back. There was something interesting you mentioned early, which was when you were coming out in engineering, having a really hard time kind of getting jobs without experience. But then, looking at your resume and knowing your history, it seemed like once you came out of the boot camp and really started down the path of analytics, you quickly ended up with a really impressive series of jobs, with NHS, with corporate jobs, without a lot of experience. And I'm wondering how you were able to do that.
Um, I spent a lot of time training in the background. That's kind of first and foremost. While I didn't kind of, you're right. Um, I accepted a lot of projects at any gig I took on. Even when I was with the ambulance service, it wasn't, just kind of sit and look after one report. I was kind of always kind of trying to keep my eye out. What's happening in the bigger picture? Where can I put my finger in and learn a little bit more early on? And I think doing that kind of just gave me exposure rather than, only being on one project. I was probably on four, but like 25% on each one. So I quickly got to understand, right, these are the bits I'm actually, it's taking me quite long or I'm quite weak on. And that's kind of, where I came across Enterprise DNA and reached out to kind of Sam and said, hey, you know what, I'm a bit of a cheapskate. I don't have the money for kind of access to the platform, but I'd love to kind of help you out any way I can for some access. And boom, I just started on the YouTube stuff, the forum. It was kind of on repeat, really. But I think what it gave me was then foundations were drilled in. The amount of times I went to the 4-day session that Sam does, I was the guy in the chat just listening in again and again. And it was kind of that. And I was kind of, again, the exposure to what other people were doing, right? The problems coming in, I was quickly seeing, right, okay. And that was kind of giving me an insight into where I needed to go as well, which was quite fascinating at the same time. And then, yeah, like I said, I continued that. When I jumped into corporate again, I made sure that, I was overseeing maybe more than I should be early on. So it was kind of, there's a project here that's probably only got a little bit of Power BI, but actually there's this whole host of other actions that need to happen. Okay, I'll just keep an eye on that. Just keep my name associated with that project, even though I know, like, I'm not going to be needed for 4 or 5 weeks, but it was just learning by association, just turning up to meetings that might not always be required. And you kind of, I think when people get into a dev role, it can sometimes be quite difficult to kind of look outside of BAU and your dev stuff. But that's where the magic is, guys. It's always kind of around the dev. The dev is a serious skill, and you've kind of got to nail that. But it's kind of playing back that development and kind of seeing, right, how is my solution going to impact the business, or where can I kind of offer my services to improve that? Wow, someone's spending 10 hours doing some reporting in Excel. Let me take a look at that. Little things like that, and you know what, they'll quickly spin up a project just for you to have a go at it. If you're kind of keen, I kind of did a COVID tracker report. We kind of resourced to kind of have a team of 5 or 6, and I was kind of like, you know what, let me have a little go at this myself, and boom, get an MVP out in front of directors, basically, at the retail sites, within a few days. And that was just literally me kind of going through the internet, learning how to connect to the, I think we ended up using it for one of the challenges, actually, how to connect to COVID data from kind of an external source, plus all of the internal stuff that we were getting calls for. And again, kind of having that foundation of knowing, right, all I actually need to do is create somewhere to hold the data, somewhere where I can then model that data into a pretty nice shape, and then a way to present that back. And then 3 blocks just continuously going at it, right? What's the end goal? Is it to kind of, and I think now we've got power ups, even the right back stuff just becomes so much easier. I know we're kind of in the analytics bit, but I think, this whole automation and robotic process, especially with Automate, that's definitely kind of part of analytics now. It is kind of just an extension. It is the robotic process automation stuff.
Yeah, I think that's going to become a standard part of the stack. You raise a really good point, which is, I think most organizations these days, if you're in there as a BI developer or business analyst, and you've got those kind of development skills, that's a windfall for the organization. That most organizations have, one person like that at most. And so there's a tremendous opportunity to create value. And I think kind of your point about, kind of keeping an eye out for where you can create value for the organization beyond maybe what they'd envisioned you doing initially, I think is a really great point, and a really good way to kind of expand your reach and provide value and get experience in a lot of different areas. I think one of the things that has always really impressed me about you and working with you on the challenges is you've got, for not having a ton of years of experience, you've got a remarkable catalog of projects that you draw from for the real world nature of the enterprise DNA data challenges, and kind of the depth and breadth of the different things you've worked on is pretty remarkable. And it seems to me that it's largely a result of you just kind of keeping an eye out wherever you've been and looking at kind of where can I provide that value and kind of get involved in something new. Is that kind of the way it went?
100%. I think one other thing that I'll definitely mention that people kind of get caught up on is job titles. Just because you've got a job title of BI developer doesn't mean you kind of can't see the end-to-end solution or be involved
Great
in the
point.
end solution. If you're a business analyst and you're kind of at the requirement stage, but you want to get involved, learn Power BI. Like if that's going to be the sweet spot, if that's going to be your advantage, is that you can produce proof of concepts within a day, like do it. That's your opportunity to upskill. So don't be contained by your job title. I mean, I was a business analyst, a BI developer, an information analyst, but underneath the hood, right, I was literally working on business intelligence and data solutions. So yeah, I think sometimes accepting a role that might be a BA, but actually you probably might get more technical than some of your BI dev roles, because
Right.
you're working on the actual front end application design, stakeholder management. So yeah, don't get too caught up in the titles. Like have these, and I think one great thing that someone shared with me was that interviews are kind of the work two ways. So kind of make sure that you're asking the right questions and see if there is a good fit in terms of what the role involves, rather than just looking for a Power BI developer title. So being able to go in and talk about, right, actually end to end, this is how I would do it, and you know what, give me a few days and I can give you a POC, is far more powerful than saying, you know what, I was a Power BI developer, but all I ever did was work in the desktop. For me especially, I'd rather see someone who's kind of done end-to-end solutions and said, boom, here's what it is, and here's someone who's using that solution.
Yeah, that's an incredibly valuable in demand skill set. I mean, from your point about the interviews, at that point, you're if you've got that end-to-end skill set, you're in a seller's market.
100%.
And you're gonna have your choice of opportunities. So I wanted to shift gears. So at this point, kind of looking back about a year and a half ago, you're in a really good corporate, BI role, really, leading some big projects, wide range of things you're involved in. And that's, for a lot of folks, they'd kind of look at that and say, okay, like that's pretty much what I set out to do. And I wanted to kind of get in your mindset of where you went from there to say, okay, like this is great and it's been a really good experience, but I want to go out on my own. And that's a scary, risky step. And I'm wondering kind of if you could talk about, what motivated you to make that jump.
Yeah, weird one. Like I said, I never kind of had this master plan or anything to kind of do it. I think, just being involved in the field, kind of seeing how consulting was set up. I kind of went into the corporate world to kind of get that experience, kind of having done my stint in consulting. And kind of the two, I kind of felt that there's a space here, kind of a nice gap that kind of fits something that I want to do, which is kind of this high level agency / consultancy that delivers fantastic end-to-end data solutions. And like you said, a bit of a scary jump with kind of baby in mind, but like yeah, it's a difficult one. Like I wouldn't say I'm your typical businessman who kind of wants to be an entrepreneur or anything like that. Yeah, I kind of see recruitment and kind of the world changing, especially since COVID and everyone being remote. So I think, you know, this kind of consultancy model or people working remotely for kind of fixed term is something that's going to grow. And I think, you know, the Power Platform as a set of microservices is just going to grow and grow. You know, when I'm looking across the board at, you know, like ERP solutions like Dynamics, I can soon see, you know, being replaced by a series of Power Apps, you know, and you kind of buy these microservices, which are kind of, you can then go pick and choose your developers or who you want to work with for a particular project. So I kind of saw that as a gap and kind of think, you know what, if I'm going to do it, I'd rather do it early. So it's kind of a game for me, leaving that comfort zone, like you said, for a lot of people that might, but for me, I was getting very comfortable there. I kind of knew the procedures and kind of knew enough Power BI dev to kind of do the job. It wasn't, you know, something new every day. And I think one of the things that kind of, like you said, I might have quite an impressive portfolio, but I think that's just me in general, being a bit of a fast, jumpy character, and kind of, you know, getting bored with one thing and saying, right, what's next? So I think, you know, consultancy kind of gives me that flavor of being able to deliver something and say, right, okay, not something I've done before. Let's take that on, rather than just focusing on one sector. You know, I love the tool stack. I kind of saw Power BI right at the start. You know, and Sam will attest that I messaged him very early on in terms of getting access to the portal. So, and I just see that growing and growing, guys. Power Automate's a big one in the RPA space, just for kind of anyone who's looking at stuff to study. That with them 3 products, guys, there's enough there. If you become experts in these 3, the Power Platform, like, you will do very well in your career. You know, I know there's people who've kind of done software engineering and go on to become, you know, application developers in full-on languages like C# or C++ or Ruby on Rails. But going forward, this low-code, no-code platform is going to be huge. And I think what it does is it opens the doors for people who might not necessarily want to be full-on devs, you know, that hardcore sitting in front of a black screen and writing green lines of code. You know, there's always been that kind of impression around technology, but I think, you know, stuff like Power Apps it is going to change that, when you've got business users who are used to kind of, you know, doing these mundane, repetitive tasks, being just getting rid of them completely. I think that's going to be a game changer.
You talk about, and this is something that really resonates with me, kind of the idea of, you know, not wanting to get bored and not do the same things over and over again. Can you talk a little bit at Stellify, kind of the range of projects you're now working on? You know, I know you probably can't talk about too much specifics, but just kind of in general, you know, the types of things you guys address.
Yeah, I've kind of been lucky enough to kind of fall into some of this edge stuff, really. But that's the way it goes sometimes. So I've been lucky enough to work on a couple of projects in and around IoT devices. So that's Internet of Things. One is kind of, I won't mention any names, but one's about buildings being put up. You know, so all of these buildings are being installed with sensors. Even the equipment that's being used to kind of build them. So the diggers, the excavators, they've all got sensors installed on them. So it's kind of, right, what can we make of that data? So one of the projects I've recently been working on is pulling all of that data together to kind of give us an insight into material usage, speed of delivery, any machines that are idle, i.e. waste, and how many diggers have we got that we're not using on a daily basis. And this is across, quite a large site. Let's say there's 100+ buildings being put in.
Wow.
So, in terms of sensors, literally thousands and thousands of sensors sending this data.
You're talking massive data sets.
Huge, like billions of records very quickly.
Wow.
Every couple of seconds, this stuff updates. If someone's walked on a particular area, right, that sends a signal. It's kind of this smart city concept that we're working on. And while it's all brilliant and fun, actually, what are we getting out of it? That's one of the questions that keeps being asked is, brilliant, we're capturing all this data and we're trying to look at the so what can we do with it? What is it even telling us? So that's quite a fascinating one, and kind of again in and around IoT has kind of been in and around machines, manufacturing. So another area where it's kind of automation is blowing up is kind of having these sensors installed on our machines so that we can start capturing maintenance, downtimes, that kind of thing. And then kind of your general stuff in terms of finance stuff that doesn't go away. We've got your typical transactional system where we're receiving all our invoices for our customers, but is kind of spread across 8 or 9 tables, and kind of we don't have a centralized view in terms of number of customers or sales or profit or margin or anything like that. So it's kind of taking them back to the beginning really, and just saying, actually, for a Power BI Pro license, you can in theory have a mini centralized data ecosystem, or the start of a centralized data ecosystem, if you know what you're doing. So it's kind of taking clients on that journey to show them that, it doesn't need massive investment. Actually, some smart thinking and some smart strategy, and you can start leveraging data better for your organizations. So that's kind of another area. So you've got the hardcore dev in terms of IoT stuff, but I think for kind of consultants out there or people trying to break in, I think that there's a whole piece or kind of an area for focus for kind of people to target as a kind of gap in the market is kind of the governance and the whole deployment strategy.
Yeah.
Right? Power BI is a beast of an application. I think people kind of underestimate the architecture and what you have available to you. I'm talking bring your own data flows in terms of your data storage. You can bring your data lake. You've got data flows to use for your ETL, workspaces, apps, sharing. Do you use publish to web? So actually the options there in terms of creating that central data ecosystem are massive. And it probably just needs someone to kind of give them a guiding hand in terms of what they should and shouldn't be using to start with. Because I think it goes back to the whole self-serve BI. I think anyone can go and download Power BI desktop, but actually getting an organization to use it effectively with a proper data set, a golden data set structure, reusable assets. I think that's the real power, because otherwise, downloading Power BI is just going to be another case of Excel, right? You'll have loads of copies of the same thing flying about, and I think that kind of that basically removes 80% of the power of what you were trying to do with Power BI. Is trying to remove all of them repetitive tasks, remove anything that you don't want to touch. Don't touch it. It's not lazy. It's kind of that's the space we should be in. If I don't have to touch it, I don't want to touch it.
I think you raised some amazing points there, in that I think people get wowed by the analytical power and the visualization power of Power BI and kind of jump immediately to that. And a lot of times I think what I see is organizations just replicating the same kind of anarchy they have around Excel, as you say, that you've got people empowered to do this analysis, but it's all being done in a piecemeal, disorganized way, and really, as you say, kind of losing the power of the environment. And
Yeah, and just to
that
illustrate that, sorry.
no, just that, that kind of upfront planning of, kind of looking at some of the big architectural questions and
Exactly.
governance questions, makes a huge difference, because when I hear people say, oh, we tried it and it didn't work, you know to me,
Exactly.
it's like, what that tells me often is it was just kind of a few people trying things on their own without kind of a comprehensive vision at the core of it.
Exactly. And I think one of the best examples I've seen of that is, as you said, we've jumped into the advanced analytics capability. So there was a client who only had 4 or 5 users of Power BI, but these 4 or 5 guys represented different areas of the business, so finance, marketing, etc. They were all going to the core system individually, and actually, after looking at the analysis, they were only using 10 tables across all four of them areas, 10 core tables. But individually, they were hitting that system multiple times in a day. Just using data flows, actually bringing them 10 tables in once, that's a massive improvement. We're now all reporting from the same 10 tables, and we're only hitting our source system once. Just having that knowledge to say, actually, guys, let's put that layer in. Let's do this effort once. Kind of would have saved them months of work individually. So it's kind of not ignoring the self-service about creating these reusable assets in a central place. While Power BI you can kind of get running, I definitely think without strategy, it's kind of you're just kind of again following that same Excel model of just putting the power into the people's hands without kind of thinking about that central position.
Yeah, totally agree. I wanted to change course a little bit and talk about management and leadership, because when you and I were first talking about kind of your vision for Stellify, you said something that always stuck in my mind, which is that you said, I want to develop a small team of killers and I just want to grow and promote their vision, and their capabilities. And I was really taken by that, and I wanted to explore with you kind of how has that been, because I know you're very much, you can just tell by listening to this conversation, even people that don't know you are a true developer at heart, and you love this stuff, you're really good at it. And I know that in terms of founding and leading this company, that it's taken you to some extent away from that development, and you're now responsible for strategy and client development and client interaction, and managing your team. And how has that transition been for you?
Hard. Pulling myself away from Power BI desktop, first of all, yeah, very difficult. No, like you said, I've loved being in the detail. From pretty much the start of my career. It was kind of which kind of helped me to get where I am, but it was kind of this mentality of end to end, trying to kind of understand as much of it as I could. I think what I was always quite good at was kind of making sure that the tasks I couldn't do, I delegated, to someone that was very competent in that. And going back to your kind of team of killers, I kind of always said that, I always want to just work with people who are just always above me, kind of, I'm looking at them kind of thinking, wow. And it kind of does feel like that. And I'm always, like you said, I've kind of stepped away from the dev. So that's kind of been a big realization for me is, I can't be the dev on everything every single time. And when I do that, I'm actually,
it's such a strong temptation though, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I'm actually a hindrance to the team when I do that, because I think one thing I've realized is, when you're kind of doing that role of taking everything and doing it yourself, communication actually starts to suffer. You don't document stuff that you kind of just assume, and that kind of leads to problems in terms of handover, etc. So I think taking that step back has kind of made me realize that, oh, actually, that's a touch too far, because if I'm doing that, Bob's going to miss the requirements when it's his turn. So it's kind of just learning that I think what I've done is kind of organize and say, beyond that point, I'm not allowed to touch it. Have I given enough information to the next guy to ensure that he can do the task without me? And I think, that was a big thing for me, because before, when you're kind of first starting out, like I said, you can just bring the other dev and you can work on it together. But when you've got 4 or 5 projects, you've kind of got to have the trust that, without you being there, that is still getting done. Otherwise, you're pretty much putting a blocker on every project. So that's been good. Again, it was all new to me in terms of managing people. Like I'd never been one for management. I think, I liked assuming lead technical roles, but never where it was kind of having to look after other people. So that's been a new experience. But one I'm enjoying, which I didn't think I'd kind of, I always thought, people is not being funny, but the less amount of time I have to spend, that's absolutely fine. I have a very small circle of friends, and I like it that way, right? As an introvert, this is probably like, management is something I've always kind of said no. So having my own consultancy is kind of forcing me to do this stuff. And I think I've just accepted the challenge, and I'm kind of slowly accepting that, as I want to grow this consultancy into what I want it to be, and what the others want it to be, is that, I'm having to wear hats that I wouldn't normally wear. And kind of the vision of kind of the team is kind of helping shape how they want me to be, if that makes sense.
Totally.
Because there's tasks they don't want to do, and unfortunately it's kind of, well, you're the lead and I have to do it, whether that's taking bad news back to a client, etc. And it's kind of that shield role at the minute as well, which I'm used quite extensively for, is make sure that there's no damage to any of the devs. But yeah, like I said, I love learning, and for me it's kind of a new challenge right now, something new, and I'm enjoying it. Who knows what the future holds? I'll probably get a HR person as quickly as I can afford one.
You raised a great point early on about diversity, and I think the diversity of thought and experience. My own experience has been, when you've got that in your team, it provides you such a value and a strength above and beyond your own capabilities, because all of us have blind spots. And I'm always amazed when I work with a diverse team, like the Enterprise DNA expert team that we've got. The creative thinking and the new ideas that get brought to that are phenomenal. And so even if you have that temptation to kind of go it on your own, I think once you experience as a manager that strength that comes from working with, as you say, a team of great people with that diversity of thought and experience, it's a pretty remarkable dynamic.
Yeah, 100% agree. And it goes back to my association. I think, putting yourself in and around good teams is learning. You're going to be better for it just by association. Well, when I first started out with Sam, I used to think, the speed of his development was absolutely crazy, but I loved it. And it's one of the things that kind of still to this day draws me to kind of Sam's videos, right? What's he doing now at 100 miles an hour? Right. Because for me, like, I don't see anything wrong with speed. I know certain people are like, take your time, but for me, if I learn a skill and I can be fast at it, that's good for me. I enjoy that. The faster I can turn around a model or a Power BI report, the better. For me, it's not a compromise on quality, which sometimes people associate with speed. So yeah, I think that was massive learning as well. Just getting that exposure to kind of Sam and having that direct link. And I wouldn't be where I am today if I kind of ignored that. Sam kind of gave me access. I was getting to see, Enterprise DNA as a startup and how it was going about its business. Again, kind of, if you think back to what I said, it was just association. I was just not getting much out of it, but I was in the right place, learning the right things in terms of, delegation from some, making sure admin's done by X, Y, Z, and okay, that frees him up a few hours. And it was just taking mental notes of little things like that. And again, from yourself, kind of, the forum questions, logging in every day, even just checking a couple, gives me that 5-10 minutes. Even the expert group, again, if I log in there for 10-15 minutes, boom, I've got a whole host of new stuff that I probably hadn't covered this week. So it's just kind of fingers in a lot of pies with some of that stuff. But yeah, grateful to kind of be part of the Enterprise DNA community. And I think that does kind of give me a little bit of an unfair advantage.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. I feel very fortunate to be a part of it. So I wanted to kind of close out. I know we've been talking for a while, and I could go on with you for hours if we had the time, but wanted to just kind of unpack and explore a little bit about kind of looking back over the range of your your experience and the lessons that you've learned. Kind of what are some of the things you've touched on a number of them throughout the discussion, but if you could summarize kind of for somebody who is looking to break either looking to break into the field from the start, or looking to move into the consultancy. Let's take those as two different questions. What are some of the key learnings that you would highlight for them from your own experience?
Start with the analytics stuff. For me, I think, like I said, don't try taking on too much. Pick 3 or 4 core skills. So like, I mentioned SQL, Excel, and obviously Power BI. That's a pretty hefty stack. And if you want to learn that well, that will take you some time. I think people underestimate number one is kind of the time. You kind of see these courses online, they're a few hours. Trust me, to get to an expert level, to be selling your skills for the money you think you deserve, it's going to require more than 3 or 4 hour sessions. It kind of, you've got to go away and implement that. And the best way of doing that is you use data sets online, practice. Kind of, even if you're just setting up, I think another thing that massively helps that people overlook is kind of look in forums and then look at the solutions, right? What was the question and what was the solution? Just read other people's posts. I think that's neglected when people are kind of first starting out, is, what are the issues people are having that I can help solve? And it just massively upskills you, because you kind of have to research it, find it out. So, whether that's in SQL, Excel, or Power BI, kind of using the forums and the kind of, again, good Googling, it'll take you miles. And it'll kind of show you where the gaps are, the way you can kind of focus. But for me, it's kind of use the forums. And secondly, it's kind of, don't pick too many channels for kind of when you're starting out your analytical stuff. Because what you'll start seeing is loads of different views. And I know me and Brian have spoken about this before, but when you're kind of first starting out, you kind of want to have 2 or 3 techniques that you're really good at and you can call upon. I think as you start kind of, exploring and getting a little bit fancy, what you'll end up with is 10 or 15 things that do the same thing. And then it becomes difficult deciding which one of them things to use. And it's always a nice problem to have, but I'd say, the first step is kind of making sure that you've got 2 or 3 really strong ways of doing it, and you understand why you're doing them. You kind of goes back to the kind of DAX concept, understand your iterators, understand what's happening there, and the rest will kind of make sense. There's no point just copying a sum X online. Right. Just understand what the X is doing, and that'll put you in good stead.
Yeah, I call it pick and stick. There are so many different ways of doing things that I think initially, as you say, kind of to pick a way that works, really understand it. And then from that understanding, then you'll be able to appreciate when you get 5 different variations on that. Okay, like now I understand what those different variations are doing and which one may be better than what I'm using. I'm always fascinated by, things like, the Power Query challenges or the DAX challenges, where you come up with a solution, a good solution that works, and then you'll see somebody do it in half the number of steps, or,
Exactly. Yeah,
in,
no, spot on.
in a way that runs, 10 times faster. But it's kind of having that initial core knowledge to appreciate, the variation. Because I think if you start from the standpoint of trying to understand the universe, you quickly just become kind of paralyzed with, overload.
Yeah, and just on that night, just consume a variety of content. Don't just stick to videos. Read articles.
Yeah.
Read blogs. Like I said, do exercises. But stick to 3 or 4. Find one that kind of suits your work rhythm. Like I said, Sam suited me because I like that fast development. Right, get it done. Read into like that attracted me. But I'm sure that there'll be certain people out there. So like, don't be kind of afraid to kind of say, what, that particular individual's delivery isn't for me. There's all, like, for me, sometimes some of the SQL BI stuff in a video is quite hard, but I don't mind reading their articles. I find some of the videos a little bit long, and a little bit kind of too detailed for what it is. But if you want to be the DAX guy, then that's the kind of level you need to go into. So it's kind of just understanding on that journey of learning what works for you, and that'll change, guys. That'll change as you're kind of doing the fundamentals, and when you start getting into more kind of deeper or more advanced analytics, you might start reading more books. All right, once you start looking at more computational and more kind of futuristic stuff, that there's less in the blogs, right? Because there's less people doing it. Obviously at the minute it's a bit of a buzz, so everyone's doing a course, but nothing wrong with picking up books. And like I said, the data warehouse toolkit definitely should be on the shelf of anyone looking to get into analytics or understand the fundamentals.
Yeah, there are 4 or 5 books that I feel like everybody should have on their shelf. We've talked about those on the forum. What about kind of final advice to folks looking to make that jump into consultancy?
Yeah. Okay. For that one, I'd say be very confident in your skill set. Like that, you might not know everything. That doesn't matter. But like I said, you can go away, Google, and be confident that you can come back with an answer. For me, that's kind of the jump off, right? You're ready for kind of your consulting/consultancy gig when you can take that deep dive and you can solve that problem. If you're kind of getting stuck, and you're spending days, I'm not saying that you'll never spend days on a solution, because I'd be lying. Like we still get stuck on stuff for days, right? 100% we do. But I think it's that confidence to kind of say, what, we'll get it done one way or another, or we'll find a way to do it. Once you kind of know a tool well enough to find a way to do it, for me, you're kind of in good stead to kind of take that next step, whatever that is. But for me, it's kind of make sure you know your tool set, make sure you know yourself as well. I was good at the dev stuff, less so at the presenting and talking stuff. So for me, kind of, getting my foot in the door was the dev roles. It was, actually I can turn around that for you in no time. But, like I said, if you're more a strategy person, go in with that side, lean with the strategy side. So find your space, really. And just be confident. I think, everyone kind of, like I said, with LinkedIn is portraying they're an expert and they know everything. They really don't. That's going to be my one thing. Like I work with these guys day in, day out. Like I just want to say, like, me and Brian still get stuck on stuff, guys. We're always posting stuff in the forum, in the chats. I think this social media world, everyone thinks it needs to be perfect. You really don't. As long as you're kind of honest, and you kind of, like I said, got that base level that you're comfortable and can do that, then you're ready.
Yeah, I could not agree more with you. And, that to the extent that, I carry that quote expert tag, the only thing that means to me is more than the average user. I know how much I don't know. I know the the range of issues and skills and, knowledge that's out there. And I know how much is still for me left to cover. And, I think your point earlier about not getting overwhelmed by that, and not trying to learn it all, that there's nobody who knows it all. The top experts I know in the world, have whole areas that they will admit they don't know much about it at all. And, it really takes a team to, to kind of cover the landscape. I know, in the expert chat, oftentimes it's, 4, 5, 6 people who'll be needed to, to work out a complex problem, each bringing, kind of unique skills and experience to that. So great note to end on. I really appreciate your time, Haroon. A lot to chew on. I hope that this has really been helpful to folks who are, looking to get into this space or advance in this space, and, wish you and the team at Stellify, all the best. I know you guys are going to continue to do some great things. So again, thanks for your time, and we'll look forward to checking in and chatting again.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Brian, for having me on. And hopefully, yeah, any of the points I hope to help. And like I said, if anyone's got any questions or, wants any guidance or anything, feel free to reach out. I know anyone at the Enterprise DNA team would be happy to answer any questions as well. So, we're an open bunch, so feel free to get in touch.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, and I will talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks again.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to Enterprise DNA TV. If you enjoyed the content covered in this particular tutorial, please throw the video a like. It really helps us, and we really appreciate it. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Enterprise DNA TV channel. We have a huge amount of content coming out all the time from myself and a range of content creators, all dedicated to improving the way that you use Power BI and the Power Platform. Lastly, check out Enterprise DNA's website. Plenty of resources and further learning that you can access very easily. All the best. Take care.